I can finally fire a loser like you. How dare you say such words at the funeral of the CEO who took care of us? But I won't be defeated by those words. Because the CEO entrusted me with something. I've decided to protect what was entrusted to me by the CEO. My name is Robert. When I was a child, I lived with just my mom. She worked from dawn till dusk. I often felt lonely as a child, but looking back, she had to work that hard to raise me on her own. She was a kind, strong mother who would do anything for me. But she passed away when I was in elementary school. I was too young to remember the details. But I do remember her growing weaker with each passing day in the white-walled hospital room. Being poor, she hesitated to go to the hospital, and by the time she was diagnosed, it was too late. She was hospitalized at the very day she saw a doctor. Her illness progressed quickly, and she passed away. My grandparents, on my mother's side, took me in. Despite their grief over losing their daughter, they held me tight and said, "From now on, we'll live together. Everything will be okay. We're here for you." To me, who thought I'd be all alone after losing my mom, those words from my grandmother meant the world. After that, the three of us, my grandparents and me, began our life together. Though they were retired, they continued working to support me. Life was still tough, but they showered me with all their love. That's why I never complained about our humble living. By the time I reached middle school, I wanted to start working to help them out. I wanted to start working right after middle school, but my grandparents wanted me to go to high school. They said that's what my mother in heaven would have wanted. I couldn't say no to that. Still, I worked part-time delivering newspapers and doing light work in a factory in the hope of making a little extra money for the family. My grandparents told me to enjoy my high school life, but for me, it was more important to ease their burden. After high school, I got a job immediately at a cleaning company. Although I was hired as a full-time employee, the pay wasn't great. But to me, it felt like a luxury. I didn't have any qualifications after high school, and no other company would have hired me as a full-time employee. I was assigned to clean various buildings and facilities. One of them was an elder care business company called Johnson Holdings. That's where I had a fateful encounter. Johnson's business involved home-based care, day services, and in operating nursing homes. During one of the cleaning jobs there, I became friends with a man. Even though I wasn't an employee there, he'd chat with me warmly. He wondered why I was still young and working as a janitor, so he talked to me. I had nothing to hide, so I told him everything. About not having parents. About my financial struggles. My wish to make life easier for my grandparents. And my envy of the Johnson employees. I really wanted to work in elder care. I wanted to do something useful for my grandparents who took care of me. But my hopes never came true. Even though we were struggling, my grandparents managed to get me through high school. I couldn't very well say that I wanted to go to nursing school because I wanted to work as a caregiver. I'd spent most of my life working part-time jobs, so I never really had any friends. And that's why I had no one to confide in. Perhaps that's why I ended up telling everything to the kind old man who would listen quietly. After hearing my story, the old man said something I hadn't expected. "If you're interested in caregiving, why don't you work with us here?" I was taken aback and could only respond with a surprised, "What?" He explained to me. Turns out, he was the CEO of the same elder care company, Johnson Holdings, where I was working as a janitor. And at Johnson, they supported their employees in getting certifications and even provided workshops. You could earn your caregiving certification while working. After hearing my story, the CEO said, "Why not work here while pursuing your certification? Your pay will keep increasing once you are certified, and you'll have a wider range of job duties. More than anything, you're interested in caregiving, right? I want to work with someone as dedicated and family-oriented as you. Come join us." I was thrilled. The idea that I could study caregiving while working and still contribute to my family's income seemed like a dream. When I spoke to the cleaning company I worked for about the offer, they gladly let me go. And so, at 20 years old, the CEO invited me to join Johnson Holdings. After joining Johnson, life was a whirlwind. I gained hands-on experience working at several elder care facilities and visiting nursing services. Having been raised by my grandparents, I always enjoyed talking with the elderly, and studying caregiving wasn't hard for me at all. I was happy to learn something new every day and felt joy in being of service to others. And so, as the days went by, I earned my caregiver's certification. Before that, I mostly did assistant roles, but having a caregiver's certification expanded my job responsibilities. I felt my potential expanding and loved every minute of work. All thanks to the CEO. In my late 20s, the CEO, who was a great benefactor to me, said he wanted me to work at the company's headquarters. The CEO had long been concerned about the decline in the quality of caregiving as the population aged, and there was a shortage of caregivers. He asked me to transfer to the headquarters and help address these challenges. For me, there was no option but to accept the offer from the man who had done so much for me. I readily agreed. But at the headquarters, there was a boss who seemed to resent the trust the CEO had in me. His name was John, 5 years my senior. John would always tell me things like, "Just because the CEO has taken a liking to you doesn't mean you can get cocky. You work too slow, slacker," and other such insults. On top of that, he often dumped his work on me, and there were times when he blamed his mistakes on me. But everyone has one or two unpleasant superiors. I tried not to let it bother me. I felt so fulfilled by my work that these things seemed trivial. Every day, as I worked hard, I was grateful to the CEO who had chosen me for the job. But the CEO always said, "I didn't do anything. It's all you." He also told me how happy he was to see me grow. I worked my hardest to repay the CEO. After my transfer to the headquarters, I also started training new caregivers. For the sake of the CEO, who was worried about the future of caregiving, I wanted to train the newcomers properly. Despite the busyness, every day was fulfilling. By this time, my grandparents had retired and were spending their days at home. They had a home caregiver, so I could work with peace of mind. My grandparents trusted the home care staff and looked forward to their visits. Seeing my grandparents use home care made me even more passionate about caregiving. I felt like working hard was my way of giving back to my grandparents. But then, suddenly, a sad goodbye came. The CEO passed away. Lately, the CEO had been hospitalized due to worsening of his chronic illness. I visited him multiple times. But the boss kept saying, "I'm fine. Don't worry, I'll be back at the office soon." Although things didn't look great, I believed he would be okay. But sadly, the CEO never returned. When I heard the news of his death from his wife, both I and the other employees were in tears. He was a kind boss who was beloved by all the employees. "Ma'am, I'm truly sorry for your loss. I'm here because of the CEO, and I'm truly grateful." When I said this to her, she shook her head with tears in her eyes. "It's me who should thank you. Since meeting you, he really enjoyed his work. He used to say that it's rare to find someone as sincere and kind as you. He was looking forward to seeing the company prosper with employees like you. Thank you for meeting him and joining our company." The CEO, who took in someone like me who had neither money nor a fancy education. And on top of that, he was grateful to someone like me. The image of the CEO's gentle smile came to my mind. I was devastated, but I couldn't grieve forever. The CEO had left something in my hands. I tried my best to pick myself up and move forward. But there was someone who ruined the CEO's funeral. It was my boss, John, who used to bully me. During the time I was saying my last goodbye to the CEO at the funeral, John came up to me and said, "Now I can finally fire a loser like you. I never liked you since the CEO favored you. Now you've lost your backup. You're fired. Don't ever come to the office again." John said this with a malicious smile. I was about to retort, but before I could, luxury cars started arriving at the funeral. John stood frozen, not understanding what was happening. Then, a person in a sharp suit stepped out of one of the luxury cars. And he approached me, saying, "Sorry for being late." John was shocked and wide-eyed. Not just John, but the other attendees were surprised too. Then, the new boss, Bob, arrived. Bob was the late CEO's son. He had the trust of the employees and was passionate about his work. The late boss had been reassured knowing that he had a capable successor. "The one who's getting fired is you, John, isn't it?" "Bob, what are you talking about? Me getting fired? Is this some kind of joke?" Bob started speaking slowly while looking at John. "Before my father passed, he had set up a home care staffing service company, a subsidiary of Johnson Holdings. The president he appointed for that company is Robert, or should I call him Managing Director Robert? By the way, Robert will also handle the staff training for Johnson. John, you might need some retraining under Robert to get rid of that nasty attitude of yours." Listening to Bob, John just stood there in shock. No way, this can't be true. Him, a president. The man in the suit from the luxury car interrupted John. "It's no lie. I'm Tom, an attorney. The late CEO had entrusted me with managing all the legal documents and company rights. He has officially designated Robert as the president of the new staffing service company in the documents." I was reminiscing about the late CEO. It was in a hospital room that I was approached to take over as the president of a staffing service company after the passing of the former CEO. Of course, I declined. I had no confidence, and I didn't see myself fit for the role of a managing director. But the former CEO said to me, "I want to entrust this to you because I believe in you. My son has promised to help with the management, so rest assured. I'd like you to focus on personnel development. I want you to teach our juniors about your genuine concern for caregiving, your meticulous support, and the importance of maintaining a trust relationship with those in need of care." Comparing to when I first met him, he seemed to have become frail. It must have been the illness. The former CEO was mustering all his strength to entrust me with the new company. I felt the urge to live up to his expectations. I might not be fit to be a managing director, but if there's anything I can do, I want to give it my all. I'll do my best, trust me. When I conveyed this to the late CEO, he gave me a warm smile. It was the same kind smile that had supported and nurtured me all this time. I felt as if the CEO in my memories was cheering me on. I turned to John and said, "John, I'm the managing director now. The late CEO entrusted me with personnel development." Bob looked stunned at my words, but applause arose from the attendees at the funeral. I knew they were cheering for me, and it reaffirmed my determination to press on. A year has passed since then, and the staffing service company I lead is now on track. Management is reassured by the help of Bob and other employees at Johnson's headquarters. I'm focusing on caregiver training seminars, workshops, and study sessions. Currently, John is attending new recruit training. Collaboration is key in caregiving. I hope that any tendency to bully colleagues will be rectified during new recruit training. My current goal is to dispatch as many skilled professionals as possible to the caregiving field. By focusing on personnel development, I believe I can brighten the future of caregiving and repay the kindness of my grandparents and the late CEO.